We're live on the Junius Maltby channel. I thought of doing the old intro music for ABC News. I used to hear it when I was a kid on the job sites or driving around in my truck. I'd hear the this is ABC News and I'm John Belmont. But I didn't. I used to like to impersonate it. And I don't know, maybe that's where it comes from. I always wanted to have that little news intro and then talk about things that were disturbing. Back then, maybe they were more real when they shared the news. I don't know. Maybe it's always been a hoax from the word go. But good. We've got sound. We've got image. We've got things to talk about. I know I've been gone a while. I mean, come on. It's been kind of a pseudo-holiday type season. There's been a lot going on. I've been working on a patio, doing some bricky work, laying some pavers, some gravel and sand and digging. Oh, gosh. It broke my body one night. I was going to do a live, but honestly, I've gotten to the point now where work like that sometimes incapacitates me. So there's so much I want to talk about, so much that we've been seeing in the news. I don't know where to begin. I don't know where to lead off into, but I've got a lot of things pulled up. We're going to talk about the Fed. We're going to talk about the virus, coin shortage, things like that, some Fed direction. A lot of it, of course, pointing to gold and silver and precious metals, the things that are really the I guess you could say the genetic makeup of this channel, really the origins of it, how we began, and the main topic of conversation. But it's always branched off into other areas because the same people that screw up the economy tend to screw up other things or find themselves on flights like the Lolita Express to private islands held by billionaires who mysteriously kill themselves. And then, you guys have seen the news. We'll start off on that pathway a little bit just to get it out of the way, because I know some people want to talk about it, and it's there. And it does tie in very nicely to the topic we had the other day. Do you remember when we were talking about different rules for different folks? Okay. There's so much. We're going to get to this. Don't worry. I know you guys are all looking at the gold chart, and it's kind of, it's static. It's coming out of a weekend. It's just kind of flat. But we're going to get to gold. I had to open with the gold chart to bait you guys in, because if I don't show gold right away, some of you guys just leave. You're like, oh, we're not talking about gold. I'm out of here. All right, well, then leave. We're going to talk about a lot of good stuff, but the gold's going to be a little bit later on in today's discussion. This situation, I don't want to call her a woman. I don't. But this individual, this person was finally apprehended. As many of you might be aware when you follow the story, she was kind of Epstein's main confidant. They think that she was and it's pretty evident that she was the one grooming young persons for this billionaire and all of his friends. And I wonder if, Mrs. Maltby, could you find me the list of names of people who flew on the Lolita Express? Is there a way you could find that to where we could read it off? The names of all those who flew on that plane to the private island to have relations with underage peoples. A lot of them. There's a lot of them. You can look it up. The list's out there. A lot of people that did some evil and heinous acts. And again, the reason I said this ties in nicely to different rules for different folks is there's a couple things here. A couple things. You might hear some fireworks in the background. I don't know. People are still really excited about things. That's another topic of conversation. But talking about this situation with Epstein and Ghislaine or Ghislaine, whatever you pronounce her dumb socialite name, Maxwell, these people that lived at the highest levels of society and the comforts that it offers, and this socialite that she was. Different rules for different folks. The reason I'm saying that is because twofold. People knew what was going on. You can't say that you don't. You can't say that you didn't. If I knew as a teenager, I remember my dad talking about Lolita Express, Bill Clinton, Jeffrey Epstein, the private island, pedophilia rings, all the things that were taking place. You're talking 20 years ago or more. It was out there, people knew, and nothing happened. Okay? Different rules for different folks. That's just one thing, okay? The fact that they got away with these heinous, egregious, degenerate sins, and I would call them atrocities, for so long without anything occurring whatsoever, of course. And there's a lot of mystery surrounding this, and everyone tells you, oh, you put your tinfoil hat on. You're a conspiracy theorist. Well, it turns out that it's all true. Back then, you were considered a conspiracy theorist if you believed or talked about any of that. And then all of it comes out to be 100% factually accurate information. But back then, it was discredited. Media wouldn't cover it. Of course, now we learn the media was told not to cover it. I wonder why, and I wonder by whom. Can you trace that? Can we find out? Can those people be subpoenaed? Can you find out, who exactly told you can't do this story? And where did it come from? But that's just ignoring the degenerate part of this thing. The other subject I want to bring up that ties nicely into our little package of a channel here on the Junius Maltby channel is the origins of Epstein's wealth and money. I read numerous articles and covered various outlets of material related to this. They're not here on the screen, so you're going to have to depend upon the memory of old Junius here. But listen for a moment, if you're tuned in. They don't know where the hell this guy got his 600 or whatever millions in 1 year and his 50 billion total or 60 billion. They don't know where this guy came up with over 60 or 70 billion dollars. They have no idea. The money to buy private islands and estates, jet aircraft, all of this wealth, right? Here's a guy that was a fired teacher, didn't last 2 years working at a private school. They don't know how he got that job. Lands in some trading outfit doing some public, trading on Wall Street, right? He wasn't necessarily good at that. One of his business ventures completely failed and his partners quit because he didn't know what he was doing. It was completely evident that he was an inept businessman. They've since interviewed numerous traders, guys that operate at the highest levels of finance. Bear with me, follow me here. Highest levels of finance in the world. None of them know who possibly he was trading with or executing trades for. They don't know whose money he was even managing, if he had any clients. He supposedly had a small group of clients who he handled, quote, privately. Okay. And that's the origins. If he was trading and just skimming off the top, the fact that he came up with $60 billion. If I find $5 on a sidewalk and don't claim it on my taxes, the government comes and will either put me in a cage or kill me. The IRS, the United States federal government, they're really good at attacking small businessmen, hardworking stonemasons, a carpenter, a mechanic, a plumber, an electrician. Anybody out there, any of you in the comments, if you so much as find $1,000 in your account and you can't account for it, you have to pay the man. But somehow, this guy, this tiny hat, can come up with 600 million in 1 year or so, and then he comes up, I forget all of the numbers, so pardon me. We do know that he was a multi-billionaire, something of the tune of $70 billion or $60 billion, and they don't have a flippin' clue where a penny of it came from, who he traded with, who he traded for, how the money made it to his accounts. He apparently was giving this woman, this whore, millions of dollars. She paid $1 million for the home she was in that they found her in and caught her in New Hampshire. She paid him like $1 million or something cash for this home. And apparently she inquired with the real estate agents when she was purchasing the home, questioning the air traffic over the residence, what kind of air traffic and flight paths took place over her home. I don't know what she was thinking about, what she was worried about. But I was looking up something earlier because apparently there's a rumor that she might have had been diagnosed with coronavirus. And I thought, oh, that's absolutely convenient. So now they're going to kill her with COVID. She can't testify because apparently this little bird's starting to sing in the cage. And she knows a lot of names. She's going to start naming names. She's got probably quite a bit of information that could be damaging to some of the highest power brokers on the planet. Now, I don't know what they're going to do to cover this up. I don't know how they're going to bring her down or try to shut her up, but I'm sure the works are in progress. I just hope they have adequate guards and security cameras this time, and maybe they're checking to make sure they're wired properly, the batteries are in, there's backups. I would hope that she has a very secure cell, because I'm worried for this woman's health and well-being at this point, even though I can't stand her and I don't care if anything does happen to her. But let's get the information out of her first. Maybe she has a couple hard drives, some information. I do hope they seize all of her bank accounts, assets, properties, and as well as Epstein's. But I just want to let you know, when it comes down to different rules for different folks, this is it. This is really a great example. I've given examples in the past, like the Secret Service getting a free pass with whores and gambling and not showing up for work and dereliction of duty and things like that. We did a whole video on that years ago titled, "You're Just a Peasant." And again, I'll reiterate that to all of you. You are just a peasant. You're a plebe, a serf, a knave. And we have to work by different rules because we don't swim with these fish. We don't hang in these circles. And it's a rigged game. And it's a big party. And you're not invited. All right? It's for these guys. It's for these people. Now, there's some connections, supposedly, to possible intelligence outfits, government agencies throughout the world, other tiny hats, Mossad, Israel, possibly using Epstein to essentially get politicians, dignitaries, and wealthy elite, and then putting them in very compromising and tempting positions, possibly recording it, possibly having evidence of wrongdoing on their part, and then essentially owning that individual and having leverage over them in their voting capacity or decision making of whatever, what have you, going forward. Now, doesn't that kind of make sense that there might be this billionaire tiny hat propped up in Wall Street by foreign powers, put into a position, who can then use his position to basically give... Are you familiar with the C.S. Lewis story? The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe? Perhaps he was giving these people Turkish delight. And they kept... Was it Edmund that was the one that was addicted to the Turkish delight in the story with C.S. Lewis? I think it was Edmund.
It's been a while.
Anyways, I believe that he's kind of like the witch in that story, Mr. Epstein. And he was giving these politicians in America, dignitaries all over the world, Turkish delights. And I don't need to elaborate on what the Turkish delights are. Sinful endeavors, evil, debauchery, degeneracy. And once he was able to lure them into this trap, perhaps they knew, perhaps they didn't care, maybe they did know, he owned them, or somebody owned them. Whoever had the footage, whoever had the recordings, whoever had whatever information that could bring these people down, they then controlled them for the duration of their political careers, their voting, their decisions, all would swing in whatever direction these shadowy, dark manipulators or power brokers wished for. Because I do believe it's kind of like that. Marionette puppets. It's that hand above. Like the cover of the Godfather movie. It's that little hand with the strings down below. And they were making these politicians dance. Now, if that sounds too elaborate and crazy for you, you probably don't belong on this channel, because that's about as sane as it's going to get. And it makes perfect sense. If you don't believe it, it's because you don't want to, and you want to look at the world through your rose-colored glasses and think that all these celebrities that flew on the Lolita Express, no, they were doing it for altruistic motives. Maybe they were trying to do a fundraiser for an orphanage somewhere. No. Are you that stupid? It was entirely organized and orchestrated around exploitation, trafficking, evil, and wrongdoing. So that's the opening for tonight's video. I know it says what? What was the title of tonight's video? Gold, full steam ahead. Full speed ahead. Yeah, either or. Full steam, full speed. We don't know if we're for a diesel-powered ship or a steam-powered ship. We're going to get to gold. But I'm letting you know right now. It's different rules for different folks. This should show you what the world's really like and how these people are going to treat us. It's disgusting. It's disgusting, the list of people that were on these planes, the list of people that were associates. And I love how the media likes to twist it one way now. They're really into showing Trump. And yeah, he was part of it. And no innocence there. He's, if he had any ties to this whatsoever, convict him, bring him down. I'm all for it. Bring him down if he was behind it or in any part of it. But they really ignore the amount of trips that old Bill Clinton was on there. He spent quite a bit of time with old Epstein there. So that's that. We're going to wrap that up. We're not going to talk about that anymore tonight because I don't want to. It's a disgusting story. It gives me thoughts of wanting to do harm to others, and healthy harm, the kind that justice, vengeance. Yeah, vengeance is mine, says the Lord. Well, Lord, please make me a tool and allow me to be the one that deals out your vengeance upon them. Here's your gold chart, kind of fluctuating. It did come down from that 18 mark. Let's get into the gold, though. Let's talk about it. We got some gold stuff to talk about now. Enough of the dark thoughts and hatred towards people that deserve to be destroyed and beaten. But we've got this gold chart looking at the weekend. I think we're coming out of it. There's obviously trading taking place overseas. We see movement. And it says here, 1772.50 for gold. I think we're going to see a continued bullish trend, obviously. I've been saying for a while now, we're in a multi-decade bull run on gold. I think the Fed and the Treasury, they are hurting units. We'll get to this article in a minute. Sorry about that. Here's the one I want to talk about. COVID causing Federal Reserve to run low on cash and coins. They're blaming COVID for being the disruption on leading to a shortage of actual money. Now, as with any media put out information, you have to question a little bit what the true causation might be, and if it's really the story they're telling us. And I do believe there is a shortage of these things, but is it truly because people are shopping cashless or, not wanting to handle currency because of fears of virus and things like that? I think there's much more and much deeper economic reasons for this shortage of actual cash and coin. So here's the article, Buffalo, New York. Hey, buddy, can you spare a dime? That's what some business owners are saying due to the coin and cash shortage caused by the COVID-19 crisis. The Federal Reserve says this is all happening because of the nationwide shutdown orders. They say when bars, restaurants, and other businesses were forced to close, that broke up the normal flow of bills and coins. Now, more and more businesses across the nation are having a hard time getting coins and bills to use as change for their customers. The fact that many people are shopping cashless is only adding to the problem. So what this tells me is two things. One, obviously, the article's point, they don't have cash for some reason. It might be somewhere else, it might be hoarded banks, or maybe people are trying to save it. Or could this be something that they're using as kind of are they softening the beachhead, if you will? If you know what that means. Are they softening the beachhead to prepare for, as we've talked about and seen pushed in the past and we've covered in videos, a cashless society? We know that's something they want, something they desire, something they've pushed towards. Gives them a little bit more of a dynamic control over everything and the tracing of transactions, and a move towards what we all call and know of as possibly being blockchain or cryptos and things like that. This does look like a good excuse to where they could issue some type of a law or an order and say, hey, we're running into difficult times. We live in a post-COVID world. Things are different now. We need to go cashless. Makes sense. I could see him making that argument. I could see it in legislation coming forward. Definitely. I think it's a possibility, and I think it's a scenario that's going to play out. If this is them softening the beachhead, I don't know what you would call it when 2 years ago we were covering these stories. And they were talking about there needing to be a cashless society, talking about the benefits of going cashless, all the hindrances of a cash society, because cash, remember the video we did on how the title was Only Terrorists Use Cash. And that was really a belief and a broadcast message that came out of the halls of many governments around the world, saying that only people doing bad things were using cash. Only people with ill motives, or gangsters, cartels, mafias, terrorists. So the only people that use cash, right? And my point in that video was kind of funny because at that time, Barack Hussein Obama Do you know who that is? He was a president of the United States. I'll say his name again, just in case you know. His name is Barack Hussein Obama. Anyways, he was a president, and he was the last president. He ended up sending like $2.8 trillion in cash, bundled, pallets, again, palletized U.S. $100 bills in pure cash. Fresh off the press, the ink was still wet. They loaded it into huge planes. And Barack Hussein Obama, a United States president, he flew all of that cash over to Iran. And he gave all that cash to Iran. So the Iranians could have the cash. I don't know what the whole motive was there. It was supposed to have something to do with like weapons and heavy water and yellow cake or nukes and missiles and this and that, and bringing freedom and prosperity to the Middle East and stabilizing the region and relationships and nation building. There was a lot of nice jargon, just boom, boom, boom. It was beautiful. Speeches were made, people shook hands, and politicians flew everywhere. Meanwhile, Epstein was doing his thing. No one was really paying attention to that back then because no one really cared, and everything was great. But that was really a big point. The hypocrisy of that just blew my mind. I mean, I was like, what? Wait a minute. You guys just said like yesterday that only terrorists use cash, but now you're like sending trillions of dollars on pallets to Iran. I didn't get it. It was confusing. I'm sorry. So, we got sidetracked there. But again, they're going to use this as an excuse. This is one of them. First they're going to say only terrorists use cash. We need to get rid of it. And now it's going to be because of COVID, because of this little cough flu that kills like 0.00001% of the Earth's population suffering from it, that are usually 85-year-old people with COPD and lung cancer. Because of that, because of the risks involved with handling coin, that's why they should issue silver coins again, because it's bacteriostatic and sterile, and silver, it's good, it's healthy, it kills things. But no, we have this cupro, clod, nickel, trash, and linen paper. So they're going to get rid of that, get rid of cash, and then force everyone to go blockchain, and they'll use the virus as an excuse. So, long story short there. We covered that story. Glad you could tune in for that. Cashless society coming right up. Want to talk about the Fed. We got to talk about the Fed. Fed's doing their thing again. I tuned in the other day to my good friend. He doesn't know who I am, so I should, I'm his friend, but he doesn't know it. Peter Schiff. I like his stuff. I like listening to him sometimes. He's beating the same drum for decades, but it's a good thing. He has a good message sometimes. I know for some people he can be difficult because of his stance on various issues. However, I was just listening to him about the Fed and what's going on. And it seems like he and I see eye to eye, and there's a lot of things that I take away from his talks that are very relevant. And it's just one piece of information that I like to add to the little arsenal in the toolbox of my mind on what I think might be going on, what I think might happen, what's coming, what's going on. And you combine that with other investors and successful individuals, and it starts to paint kind of a pretty grotesque picture for what's coming and what the future might hold. And I would say maybe when you listen to Schiff, he's kind of, I wouldn't say he's the worst case scenario guy, like the most negative about it. But if he's even 60 or 70% accurate and right on what could potentially be around the corner, and he doesn't really put a time on it, it could be pretty bleak. When you look at like pension defaults, currency collapse, and the ramifications, what the world and what the U.S. and global economies will look like as this continues to unfold, this situation that we find ourselves in. It's bleak. It's definitely not good. He talked a lot about gold, its direction, its future. His calls for Bitcoin are pretty incredible. I know the Bitcoin maximalists, if Schiff's right, there's going to be a lot of people jumping off of buildings if they can afford the elevator fare to get to the top. That is, his predictions on Bitcoin are not good. Not good. He's very adamant that gold will surpass Bitcoin. You heard it not from me. That's Schiff's take. That eventually, very soon, within current times going forward that gold will surpass Bitcoin in dollar valuation. People will lose faith in it. It will deteriorate, Bitcoin that is, and it doesn't have the market utility or the true intrinsic value necessary to sustain itself or to survive due to manipulation. A lot of reasons. But if that does happen, I think it's going to send shockwaves through a lot of different investing communities and topics and talk. And it will also create, I think, the floodgates are going to open towards gold. We're going to see a lot of people shift, a lot of capital flow from crypto world into gold. That could be a huge scenario. I mean, imagine if you started seeing a diversion of that, of fiat that's been pumped into the crypto world. If you start seeing it liquidate out of there, sell off, deteriorate, you see Bitcoin crashing, and then a lot of that money flow towards metals for whatever reason. If he's right, if that does happen, it'll send shockwaves. It'll be interesting. It'll definitely be something to microwave some popcorn to, or maybe you don't like a microwave. Maybe you like to cook it on a stovetop or an air popper. However you do it, if you make some popcorn, to sit back and watch that scenario unfold, it'd be kind of an entertainment, I think. That's one thing he was talking about. And the other one is the gold-silver ratio. Don't worry, we're going to get to these stories. We'll read through them. We've got all the time in the world. I've got all night. I'm going to be here. And it brings up a good point, because the Dow gold ratio, I've talked about it in the past. And we've talked about the Dow gold 1-to-1. It's very rare. It's very scarcely happened. But let's see. What is the Dow right now? Is it 27,000? Can you look up the Dow for me? The Dow Jones Industrial Average, what it closed at Friday? Do any of you know what it was? I'm thinking 26,000 or 27,000. 26,000 divided by 1774 for gold, I'll say. It's about 14. That's what it was the other night when I checked it and I was talking to him. Regardless of what the exact numbers are for the Dow, it's about 14-to-1 right now. Now we're talking about seeing possibly if we did see a Dow gold 1-to-1, that'd be pretty incredible. And that would be looking at something like, if you actually saw $10,000 gold and 10,000 Dow, that would be interesting. That would be, again, shockwaves, paradigm shift, a lot of things happening. Ugly world economically speaking, most likely. But, we're looking at that. We're looking at those scenarios take place. Gold's definitely that's the purpose of tonight's video. As long as it's taking us to get there, looking at where gold is going forward. And I think it's full steam ahead. That's why I titled this full speed ahead right now with what's happening. The Fed's unraveling, the Treasury's unraveling. They're losing control of the situation. And now what we're going to do is we're going to visit some articles that kind of paint that picture. So let's just go through them now that you know the intro is completed. Even it took us 20 or 30 minutes to get to it. Billionaire bond investor, we've talked about this guy before, Jeffrey Gundlach. He believes the Federal Reserve has propped up the economy with extraordinary feats of lending and bond buying that have curbed market volatility during the COVID crisis, but may come back to haunt policymakers. The reason I'm bringing this article up is because these are some of the same things that we've talked about here recently, and we're actually seeing billionaire bond investors mention the same exact things. Bear with me here. In a recent interview with Yahoo Finance, the CEO of the $135 billion double-line capital hit out at what he called the most incredible fiscal lending Fed policymakers have ever contemplated. Since the early days of the crisis, the central bank has spent trillions to backstop the economy, buying a host of corporate bonds, placating a whipsawed market in the process. Placating, is that a word? Yeah. Those efforts have sent the Fed's balance sheet spiking well above $7 trillion. The Fed has decided that they want to pull out all the stops to reduce market and economic volatility, Gundlach said. What they're doing is really a bridge further than they have ever gone before. Turmoil on Wall Street was really persistent and elevated, and they kept throwing things at it to make the volatility stop, the billionaire said, joking that, quote, when investors use the word volatility, what they really mean is down, prices going down a lot, unquote. The 60-year-old bond investing legend, who spent 35 years in the markets and navigated multiple crises, explained that the recent rout in credit markets was far worse than the aftermath of the financial crisis, speaking about 2007 and 8. That led to what looked like was going to be some very substantial bankruptcies in some of the leveraged pools like mortgage-related REITs and other types of investments, he explained. As the COVID pandemic and subsequent lockdowns wreaked havoc on the economy, the Fed unleashed an arsenal of liquidity facilities, including backing corporate debt markets, a move Gundlach criticized as violating the central bank's charter. The Fed figured desperate times require desperate measures, and then went all in the way into buying corporate bonds, Gundlach said, which he argued is against the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. He added they could go even further if there's another downturn, which could very well happen as coronavirus infections surge nationwide. Oh, it will, and it is happening as far as the downturn. Gundlach, one of the few investors who sounded the alarm in subprime that precipitated the 2008 crisis, has spoken to Yahoo Finance previously about a crisis looming in corporate credit, where companies are holding record levels of debt on their books. The key risk is the enormous portion of investment-grade corporate markets sitting at their lowest tier, which is BBB. These bonds could easily be tipped into junk status. There's been so much issuance of corporate bonds, the prices have been propped up to levels where I think the owners that own them at these levels will end up losing principal on a basket of these assets, he said. What that means is the Fed is delaying the inevitable. In the meantime, they have a lot of wherewithal to continue delaying because they are spraying money all over the place and buying all these assets, Gundlach added. This is why if you're in any of these bonds, which I would hope you're not if you're part of this channel, you've dumped them or are dumping them. Get out of them because it's a fire exit. You're in a movie theater and it's burning. The first one to the exits wins. You don't have time to sit around and see that everyone else gets out. Not in a financial crash like what could happen here. If you're in these BBBs and everyone else is going to dump them into junk status and the value is going to plummet, you might as well get rid of yours now and just leave quietly. Just kind of tiptoe out and then tell your buddies to get rid of theirs. But before you tell them, get rid of yours first. What that means is the Fed is delaying the inevitable. In the meantime, they have a lot of okay, we read that part. The veteran bond investor explained that the price of corporate bonds isn't really real. There's no price discovery mechanism that's being pegged. There's no message. There's just a target price that the Fed has been doing, and that led to a pop-up in corporate bonds. He cautioned on the interest rate profile of investment grade, pointing to the LQD, Exchange Traded Fund, as an example. It's about the interest rate risk of the 10-year Treasury, and the yield to no losses is about 2.25. There's not a lot of reward there, and there's a lot of risk if the bonds get downgraded, because the yields on junk bonds are far higher today than the yields on BBB corporate, he argued. So if they get downgraded, we know the pricing is going to suffer very significantly. So what you're going to see here, yes, a crash in the bond markets, and I think a lot of the prop up that he's mentioning seeing take place there with bonds, it's bleeding into the rest of the markets. I think the entirety of Wall Street, the entirety of the stock market is truly being propped up and inflated by these huge injections of capital from the Fed. You remember the thing we talked about and showed on that Democracy put out? $27 billion a day. Every single day, $27 billion shoveled and pushed into the black hole of the financial system. And it's just being eradicated. It's disappearing. It's not doing anything. Nothing that they do works. Nothing that they do works. And yet they keep doing it. U.S. Federal Reserve is ready to buy stocks. Yes, really. This is out today. This is the pertinent stuff. Summary. The Fed is allowing BlackRock, okay, it's like a CIA investment outfit. Look into this company. It'll blow your mind. Guarantee you some BlackRock guys flew with Epstein on Lolita. The Fed's allowing BlackRock to manage, supervise, and direct the investments for the Fed's account. Oh, there's no that's normal. That's perfectly fine. Thanks for investing do that. That's good. Exhibit B in below shows Fed is ready to buy stocks. Janet Yellen said, quote, but no longer term, it wouldn't be a bad thing for Congress to reconsider the powers that the Fed has with respect to assets it can own, unquote. So now the Fed wants more power. They want to maybe own more assets. You see how beautiful this is? A lot of good changes are happening. They're making things better. They're doing this for your safety and your freedom. Vote for it. Just make sure you go vote. It makes everything better. The Bank of Japan and the Swiss National Bank serves as a template for the U.S. Fed to copy should they really need to purchase stocks. Based on the latest, oh my God. Oh, I'm going to freaking hit my head on this table. They need to let all these guys go bankrupt. Everything needs to go bankrupt. Let everything fail. Everything needs to fail. Bleed the system. Collapse the system. Markets need to go to zero. Break it down. Break it all down. Complete reset. Oh, whatever. Let's keep going here. Based on the latest Q1 20 holdings, the Swiss National Bank owns about $100 billion in U.S. stocks. The U.S. Fed is surely taking notes. Oh, my God. Okay, so that's really the summary of it. We could go in and read all this, but, you've got the whole BlackRock buying bonds, BlackRock investing money for the Fed, power of attorney, Exhibit B, Federal Reserve Bank of New York, the client, complete authority, purchase, sell, exchange, convert, and otherwise transact in any and all stocks, bonds, cash held for investment, and other assets as BlackRock Financial Management Incorporated. They're just an arm of the Fed. They're an arm of the deep state. Guarantee it. Keep an eye on that. Look them up. Read about BlackRock. It'll blow your mind. I probably should just do an entire video on BlackRock. Even the name alone doesn't it just sound nefarious? This is BlackRock. How may I help you? It sounds like a James Bond villain company.
It's like Silvercore USA's.
Yeah, it's bizarre. It's like who are the bad? It's like Cobra in G.I. Joe. It's like the Cobra guys. They changed their name to BlackRock. It's just it just seems like a bad entity,
Go Federal Rangers.
Unbelievable. Anyways, so this BlackRock Financial Management may deliver to any securities broker dealer from firm executing transactions on behalf of the account a copy of this document as evidence of the authority of BlackRock Financial Management to act as agent and attorney in fact for and on behalf of the account, Federal Reserve Bank of New York. There you go. Yeah, it should just scare them. If this doesn't scare you, and the thing is, everyone else is talking about dumb stuff, right? There's nothing else. Yeah, you go to your typical news sites and you're going to just see celebrity trash news. In the perfect state, I don't like to get too statist and totalitarian, but if just pretend for a moment that I was a dictator, celebrity news would be illegal, punishable by death. If you reported on anything that celebrities did and it made it to your news site, if it was so-and-so, what are some things they report when celebrities do things? I don't know. So-and-so tweeted this today, and this is their new reality show or whatever. You just get hung. Just hang them. It's disgusting. This is the stuff. This is the information that's being overlooked, and it's because of that we're seeing the situation that we're in. People are just too stupid to care, and they're going to go broke because of it, and they're going to face some serious, dire consequences on account of all of this that's taking place. So that's that. The Fed's buying stocks. Janet Yellen's before it. Look at her. There's the albino Fed chairman, former Fed chairman, Janet Yellen, former Fed chair. Yeah, just looks like I used to have a middle school homeroom teacher. Nothing against albinos. Some of them are really good, beautiful people, but she just kind of looks like her. She looks like my albino middle school homeroom teacher right there. That's what she looked like. She was much kinder than Janet Yellen was. She wasn't one of the people that was an architect of destroying the planet like Yellen. So anyways, here we got the Swiss National Bank top holdings. Look at this. Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Facebook. Facebook took a hit recently, right? There's their big companies they all hold. Their average increase. What this means for investors. Obviously, if the Fed's going to go in there, they're going to start pumping prices, inflating asset prices artificially. What we're looking at here, Ray Dalio said the Federal Reserve is boosting markets. Conventional valuation metrics don't apply anymore, and the U.S. dollar could lose its appeal in a Bloomberg interview on Thursday. The capital markets are not free markets allocating resources in the traditional ways, the Bridgewater Associates co-chief said. Dalio also predicted that central banks' balance sheets will explode, but argued the Fed needed to take sweeping measures because the whole economy is systemically important. Billionaire investor Ray Dalio warned that the Federal Reserve is artificially inflating markets. Normal valuation metrics no longer apply, and the U.S. dollar risks being displaced as the world's reserve currency in a Bloomberg interview on Thursday. The capital markets are not free markets allocating resources in the traditional ways, said the co-chief of Bridgewater Associates, the world's largest hedge fund with $138 billion in assets at the last count. Is anyone taking notes here? Bridgewater Associates, the world's largest hedge fund, just stated that the capital markets are not free markets? The Fed is inflating prices? It's not an opinion, ladies and gentlemen. It's not my opinion. It's a fact. It's reality. And it's being let happen. Everyone, they're cheering it on because most people are just too stupid to know or to care. The economy and the markets are driven by the central banks in coordination with the central government, Dalio continued. The Fed has spent trillions of dollars on bonds and other assets to boost liquidity in financial markets and prevent companies from collapsing during the coronavirus. Dalio defended the central bank's unprecedented actions, actually. He argued more sweeping measures were justified compared to the 2008 financial crisis when it focused on shoring up the financial sector. Even this guy, not only does he admit what's happening, he's an apologist for it. He's an advocate for it. He's like Goebbels. He's out there speaking on their behalf, telling you how good it is and why you just need to get into the train car and go the way you need to go. The whole economy is systemically important, he said. If they didn't go out and lend to companies, we would lose large parts of our economy. Well, let's lose them. Bye. You're going to see central banks' balance sheets explode, he said. Moreover, the flood of cash into markets has detached them from the real economy, meaning valuations no longer reflect fundamentals. Investors might feel sticker shock when they see price-to-earnings ratios north of 40, but those are no less implausible than zero interest rates, he continued. Multiples shouldn't be used in the traditional way of a frame of reference, he added. So the dollar, this is the part I want to get to because the dollar is going to lose its appeal. Again, that's going to have a very bullish effect on gold. Dalio famously said that cash is trash in January, doubled down on the stance during the Bloomberg interview. He argued that investors should avoid cash and bonds because rock-bottom interest rates mean they offer no returns or even negative real returns after taxes are paid. There's been a shift towards storeholds of wealth, such as gold and equities, as a result, he said. The Bridgewater boss also described the limits to the Fed's current interventions. If a compelling alternative to the dollar emerges, investors will pile into it and dump bonds offering no return, he said. That would be terrible for the United States, Dalio continued. It would be probably the biggest disruptor, not only to the markets, but to the whole world geopolitical system. You hear that? It would be probably the biggest disruptor, not only to the markets, but the whole world geopolitical system. The outflow of money would force the central bank to buy even more bonds or raise interest rates, he continued. Well, they can't do that. Hiking rates might not be possible as it would push down asset prices, he added, and potentially spark a wave of defaults due to the high levels of debt in the economy. Okay, asset prices are inflated. Dollar's going to collapse. It's going to be the biggest thing since sliced bread, apparently. Biggest thing since sliced bread. And that's that. That's from Dalio. Okay. Pandemic inflation is another Fed-inspired disaster for America's poorest. The Federal Reserve's policies continue to create a wedge between rich and poor. This time it's being manifested in inflation. See that? Inflation. They're using the word. They actually use the word. I think this is a Canadian news outlet. Inflation is disproportionately affecting the poorest 10% of Americans. because their lives don't matter to the Fed. Rising home prices and groceries affect those worst hit by the pandemic. Yes, again, the Fed and the central bankers, their lives just don't matter. How many more crises can the Fed pile on the backs of working Americans? As many as it takes, because they just keep doing it. They're just a bunch of suckers. We just keep digging and grinding away in the ditch. Shaking the bush, boss. Shaking the bush. I'm shaking the bush, boss. As if anyone needed more proof that the pandemic was disproportionately impacted the most vulnerable, Bloomberg found some. Inflation has accelerated for the bottom 10% more than the top. For the Federal Reserve, that's business as usual. Pandemic, the economic triple threat for vulnerable Americans. In the United States, record levels of employment have long been padded by shaky part-time service work. Unfortunately, and rather predictably, the pandemic's hallmark has been massive layoffs in the largest and most brittle portion of the American economy. Astonishingly, for a large swath of those workers, there are two significant headwinds in their pursuit of happiness. The first is a simple fact that blue-collar workers are more likely to contract the virus. If you can't work remotely, and you haven't been laid off, chances are you're headed into work and putting yourself at risk every day. Secondly, even if you've avoided getting laid off and haven't gotten sick, there's more relentless pressure on your finances. Inflation has risen more aggressively for the bottom 10% than the top 10% in the economy. That makes sense. Recalculating inflation. The have-nots suffered disproportionately as COVID-19 changed buying patterns. Here's the official U.S. rate in May, right here. It's in black. Recalculated rate based on the shift in the consumer basket. Look at this. A little over 1% here, 1.5% here. This is inflation for the lowest 10%, inflation for the highest 10%. Here's the COVID CPI. This means prices for necessities like groceries and housing are now on the rise. If you're wealthy, you don't worry about the cost of food as much, while a rising housing market is great if you own a home. Wealth inequality gets worse every crisis. And this is something I've talked about for a long time. Yes, the free market is dead. Long live the Fed, of course. We've talked about that. But the Fed actions in inflation is always the worst on the lower incomes. That's something Ron Paul and the Austrian School of Economics, von Mises and all those guys, they've been talking about that for decades. They've been preaching that and no one listened to them. Inflation affects the poorest, the worst, and the most. And yet, they don't care. The Fed just keeps doing what they do. They keep printing off the money. They're going to destroy and murder the dollar, cause more inflation, and it's going to make life a lot harder for a very large segment of the population, and typically those that are most vulnerable to it. So there you go. That's that bit. We've talked about the Fed, talked about gold. You guys know where gold's going. I don't need to beat this table and talk about that too much. I think you guys know what that means and where all this information points to for gold. But check this little article out. It's a little fun one. You guys like the little fun eBay articles, right? So this guy, 5 weeks and $2 million get this eBay seller 4 years in jail. In a 5-week period, a single online seller defrauded hundreds of customers out of nearly $2 million using eBay and PayPal, according to allegations by the Department of Justice. The government said the seller listed and sold gold bullion and gold coins, receiving payment through PayPal, but never sent the items. When eBay customers inquired about the status of their purchase, the seller allegedly provided fraudulent shipping and tracking information to delay the discovery that he had not sent the coins. The defendant will serve 4 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release, and was ordered to pay $1.371 million in restitution, according to the government press release found on justice.gov. Pretty interesting article about eBay gold seller there. Interesting. I wonder where he is. I wonder what he did. I don't know what kind of guy he is. I don't see a lot of suspect profile information, but maybe we can dig deeper. This is July 5th, so this is pretty recent. Maybe we'll get more information as time goes on. Let's check back in on gold. What's it doing? Down a little bit, 1771. We'll see how it opens tomorrow. It's not bad, though. It's still doing good. Remember the year on year here is 2020. Still 16.8%. Last year was 18.9%. Does better than those trash bonds some people are in. I don't know why you buy bonds when you can sit in something that looks like this. 20%, 23%, 30%, 5.6%, 23%, 29%, 10%, 7%. Couple down years, 28, 1, and 10. Not big deal. We'll take it. 9%, 13.6%. Not down 2%. We'll take it. 18.9%, 16%. With an average of 10.4. Are you kidding me? How many times I got to show this to you? And again, remember back here it was all rosy and peachy. Everything was good. Growing in here. My economy 5, 6, and 7 was beautiful. Economy was burgeoning. Dow was hitting all-time highs. And it was still 30% up gold that year. Had a little correction here. Markets got crapped on. Then we had this period of growth here, right? Gold still skyrocketed. Yeah. All those gold bears. Get out of here. You guys don't know anything. Anyone who's a gold bear, I'll tell you, you can't listen to them because they're fundamentally flawed. Any individual that you read about in the last 2 or 3 years that was making those calls of sub $1,000 gold, sub 7, sub 8, sub 5, any of those guys, wad them up into a little ball and toss them into the wastebasket because they're trash. They're just trash. Their opinion's trash. All of their fundamental understandings of what's going on is trash. You don't want to look at things through their lens because if you do, you're going to make some wrong decisions in where you place your capital. La Petite Silver, my friend, my man. Sorry, I've been MIA for a while. It's great to have you on here. Keep us up to date on stuff. Thank you again. Great job. Hey, La Petite Silver, I appreciate it. Thank you for the benevolent and kind donation. Very generous of you. Helps the channel immensely. I can't thank you enough. You know what? I have been MIA for a little while too, so you're lucky you caught this live. This is the first time we've been on for 2 or 3, 4 days, 3 or 4 days or so. I was predisposed and busy doing some other things. I do have to work for a living because, well, I do have to work. It's just the way the world was. Yes, my friends, I'm going to wrap up tonight's live. Unless Mrs. Maltby has anything she'd like to add. The beautiful and gorgeous Miss Maltby, who's quietly sitting over there cross-stitching. What are you doing over there? You just cross-stitching? Let me see. What are you making? What are you working on? Let me see. Just show me the pic. Let me see it. Oh, you just started. I can't tell. There's a little corner of green. Is that green? I am colorblind.
You're colorblind.
Yeah. So I got my little wife just sat there the whole time. She didn't say she's pretty quiet tonight. She's got a little sunburn because she was out in the garden growing little vegetables and salads to make sure I'm healthy. She worries about me sometimes.
Especially when fireworks are lobbed at your
So she worries about you. Worry about my health, so you grow me vegetables and then make me nice little gorgeous little salads to make me healthy. That's a sweet lady, you guys. You guys need to say thank you to Mrs. Maltby because she's trying to keep me alive. She's trying to keep me healthy so that I can do this for you guys and stick around for her because she needs a yard worker. She needs a yard boy. So she feeds her little servant boy. Yes, she brought up an interesting point. Last night, while minding my own business, sitting there. This is a true story. I'll tell it. Whatever. Can I get a drink of water? I'm going to have a drink of water. Just, okay, if you're still on the channel, how many guys are in the 40, what are there, 158 still watching? Okay, I'll tell you guys a story. Stick around. This is a good story. I just slammed that water bottle. All right. I even spilled some, but I was very thirsty. It's a hot summer. It's dry out. I'm parched. Water in the desert. I used to torture myself when I was on dry, tired hikes. I would actually think of a desert, and it would make me even more thirsty. Anyways, this is a true story. So last night, we're sitting and enjoying our garden. I've done a lot of work on it lately. I was tired. It was after dinner. And I was sitting on this old, beat-up, weathered picnic table that Mrs. Maltby found for thrift. Very cheap. Someone was moving. They were essentially giving this thing away. And we hauled it off. So we have this old rustic picnic table. And I'm sitting on it. I'm actually sitting on the table surface with my bum. And my boots are on the bench.
One of the kitties.
On the bench seat. And one of the kitties is with me. And It's the 4th of July, which most people are too stupid to know what they're celebrating. You know, they're celebrating their freedom while they're wearing their mandated forced mask held in confinement for their canceled parades as they sit in quarantine, which is basically house arrest. So as everyone is sitting under house arrest with their forced mandated masks on and not allowed to go back to work by the mandates and all this stuff, they're celebrating their liberty and their freedom. Freedom! America! Heck yeah, NASCAR! So they're out there doing that. And, you know, typically I don't get too upset. I'm not about fireworks in certain areas. But they can be kind of annoying. And I'm not going to tell the whole story here at all. I'm just going to tell you really what happened to me. And we kind of dealt with it in our own way. But this big mortar shell / I think they call it even a ladybug. It spins way up in the air and explodes and spreads fire everywhere. And it's kind of an herb. We live in an area, it's kind of dry. There's also some houses around. This thing flies like 200 feet from it. There's a couple of drinking neighbors down the road, and they're guzzling their beers, sitting in lawn chairs. And these people looked like you walked into an Oklahoma Walmart. Just picture that. You walk into an Oklahoma Walmart, these are them. This is the demographic we were dealing with. So they're launching fireworks, hooting and hollering, guzzling beers. And one of them, and I wasn't going to say anything. I didn't care. Hey, they're just having fun. They're celebrating their freedoms. And one of them comes flying over the house. It finally goes out. I see it way up there. It's careening through the stratosphere, back down through the ionosphere or whatever. And it's falling towards Earth at meteoric speeds. And I have my eye on this dark object twisting, and I'm like, that thing's coming towards me. It is. And all of a sudden, before I could even think or react, all I'm thinking in my head at this point is, as I see it careening towards me, is Mrs. Maltby is about to get really mad. I just knew it. In my mind, I was literally thinking, I didn't even think of survival. I just thought, she's going to kill somebody. Because she was already upset. She was already stewing. I mean, this woman was already a mad and angry, skinny little Polak. And she was, luckily she didn't have a Kalashnikov in her arms because I think it would have discharged. But as I'm seeing this thing careen towards my head, I'm just thinking Miss Maltby's about to get really pissed off. And sure enough, it comes hurling by me, inches from my head. Like, and it hits the ground. Yes. And the kitty. Yes, the kitty. The kitty was there, little raven, little black raven. She's always a worried kitty. She already has like PTSD. That's a whole other story. But this kitty's pretty timid. So she sees this meteor. She doesn't know what it is. She hears all the explosions and all this artillery shell lands in my yard. It hits the ground, and I'm not exaggerating. I kid you not. Whizzed past my head, and it spread some sparks. But when it hit the ground, it erupted and blew sparks everywhere.
In my pumpkin patch.
Into Mrs. Maltby's pumpkin patch, where there's some dried bark chips. Possibly could have caused a fire. So at that point, long story short, we made contact and asked them politely to not do it anymore. They were kind of rude about it. That's that. It was a story. They didn't know who they were dealing with, really. They didn't realize that they truly escalated the situation. It could have got quite uncomfortable for them and perhaps even detrimental to their health, if you know what I mean.
I didn't appreciate you having to drag me away, though.
I had to grab Mrs. Maltby by the arm and literally forcibly drag her away because I thought she might potentially gouge someone's eyes out. Reckless, $9.99. Wow, my friend, thank you for a donation. Hey, looking forward to acquiring some Maltby coins. Great info tonight. Thank you. On that note, I have contacted AppMex twice inquiring if I can send them the dies. The plaster, I don't know if they're under lockdown due to the COVID, but I haven't heard back from them. If you guys want, hey, email AppMex and tell them to email Junius back. Say, hey, Junius needs you to make his coin. I want to order 20. Because right now, they're not listening to me. I've sent them 2 well-written and articulate emails asking to have the coin reissued on their site, and I have not heard back from AppMex. So, unless you got other ideas, I could try SD Bullion, I guess, but so far I wanted to go with AppMex, and I'm just not hearing it, so nothing yet. All right, that's it for tonight. I hope you guys are good. I hope you're all well. I hope you're healthy. I Hope those of you in Great Britain and the UK, hope you had a wonderful 4th of July celebrating Great Defeat Day for you guys as us colonists booted you out of North America. Yes. So hope you guys, I don't know what you guys do over there. What do you guys do in the UK for the 4th? Do you guys just kind of sit around and wish you could have gotten 1812 right? But that didn't work either because Andrew Jackson whooped up on you. If I can't afford to buy a whole ounce of gold, should I start to buy fractional? Yes. Yes. Is it Jaime or Jamie? Jaime Aaron Sanchez. Jaime. Jaime, that's what I would recommend. Tenths. Start with tenths, my friend. Harigas de la Yarugas called you Karen Maltby. That's funny.
So, funny story about that.
They did call you that, didn't they?
Because the guy who was a boomer actually did call me a Karen.
He did.
But maybe Junius will tell you what I called him in return.
You called him a bootlicking...
An effing bootlicker.
An effing bootlicker. That's right.
But,
I de-escalated the situation, got her out of the area, and then...
I am not a Karen for telling you to stop shooting fireworks at my property, nearly injuring my cats and my husband. So...
Yeah.
Sorry, not a Karen here. I'm actually probably the least Karen
she was really offended by being called a Karen. I think he was joking. He was laughing. He said the laughing face. All right, that's good for tonight. I'm going to go hold my Mark 18, lay down for a little bit, have some tea. You guys all have a wonderful rest of your night. Good to have you all on here. Thanks for being part of the channel. And I appreciate it. You guys be well, be healthy, have a good rest of your evening. Take care now.